Apache or Uratkos as a diarus isktor parek garib kishan pasbejdi agaya broken bar par jofsla usitodn klikia gayatha, wyuskis indagi konaya modin walatha. Du ajnabiak highs amin par majbaran jabtakrue. Tanafrat se shuru huikaniahis to ahis to takdir ban gay a broken bar. The Apache woman was given to a poor farmer as punishment by her elders, though the word given was misleading and even she despised it. She had not been traded or offered, not in the way outsiders whispered. Instead, her community, tired of the escalating conflicts she often sparked, decided that she would spend a season living and working with someone completely unlike her. Someone humble, patient, slow to anger. Someone who might teach her a kind of peace she had never managed to hold in her hands. Her name was Nalan. Strong-willed, quick-tempered, always the first to challenge a command or question a tradition, she found herself standing before the tribal council after a public argument spiraled into a dangerous fight between two neighboring families. No one had been seriously injured, but her words had struck like flint against dry leaves. The elders believed that Nalan's fire needed redirecting, not extinguishing. So they told her she would spend the planting and harvesting season under the guidance of a widowed farmer who lived on the edge of the valley. Thomas Hale, a man known for his silence and his unshakable patience. Nalan didn't argue. Arguing was what had brought her there in the first place, and besides, she had always wondered about the quiet farmer who lived alone with his small plot of corn and his rust-colored mule. Some said he had once been social, even joyful, before tragedy hollowed him out. Others said he preferred the solitude. Nalan suspected neither story was entirely true. Thomas wasn't thrilled either when the council announced their plan, though his objections were softer. He didn't want responsibility over anyone, let alone someone known for causing trouble. But rejecting the council's request would only bring more unwanted attention. So he nodded, hat held low, and prepared the small spare room in his cabin. When Nalan arrived at his homestead, she stood in the doorway with her arms crossed, eyes studying everything, the chipped paint on the window frame, the sagging barn door, the mule watching her suspiciously. Thomas cleared his throat. Room's at the back. You can set your things there. I don't have things, she said flatly. He hesitated, unsure of what to say. Then you can a broken bar get settled, I suppose. She stepped inside without a word. Thomas watched her move, each footfall deliberate, her posture unchanged even in unfamiliar territory. She seemed like someone constantly prepared for a fight. The first days passed in an awkward quiet that seeped into the walls of the cabin. He tended the fields. She followed, observing more than helping. He didn't ask her to do chores. She didn't offer. They danced around each other with a kind of mutual mistrust, like two wary animals caught in the same snare. But on the fourth morning, Nalan rose before the sun, walked past Thomas without a word, and picked up a hoe. She didn't ask whether the rows needed turning. She could see it for herself. Thomas blinked in surprise but said nothing. He worked beside her, and though neither spoke, there was a new rhythm forming, one that felt less like avoidance and more like shared purpose. For the next few weeks, the work molded them into something functional, if not yet comfortable. Thomas realized that Nalan was clever with plants, recognizing soil conditions by smell and texture alone. She listened to the earth the way he listened to the wind. When a late frost threatened the young corn, she was the one who advised him to cover the shoots with woven blankets. He might not have believed her if her certainty hadn't been so unshakable. Her knowledge saved most of the crop. Still, the tension remained. It hung in the air like dust. Nalan was not used to taking direction. Thomas was not used to giving it. But perhaps the greater issue was that both carried wounds neither would speak of. Late one night, when the wind howled through the valley, Nalan stood outside staring at the dark horizon. Thomas stepped onto the porch. "Storm's coming," he said quietly. She nodded. "I know. You should sleep." "I can't." He hesitated, unsure how far he was allowed to tread into her silence. "Something on your mind?" She almost laughed. "Only everything." He opened his mouth, thought better of it, and leaned against the porch post instead. They stood like that for a long moment. Finally she asked, "Why did you agree to this? Toe broken bar me?" He shrugged slightly. The elders asked. "That's all?" "Well, a broken bar," he exhaled. "Solitude can become too familiar. Sometimes it's good to have someone else breathing in a place." Her expression softened, just a little. "Your wife died." It wasn't a question. Thomas swallowed. "Yes." "Was she kind?" "Yes," he rasped. "Too kind." Nalan nodded. "She didn't offer sympathy. She didn't offer empty words." Somehow, Thomas appreciated that more than anything. From that night on, things changed. Their conversations remained sparse, but the silence between them became gentler, less bristling. When they worked as partners. When they ate, they sat at the same table instead of opposite ends of the room. She began telling him stories carefully, selectively about her childhood, her mischievous streak, the miscommunications that often spiraled into conflict. He listened without judgment. And Thomas, in his own time, began to share things too. His loneliness. His mistakes. The dreams he once had for his farm and the way they had shriveled after his wife's passing. One afternoon, as summer settled thickly over the valley, they repaired the barn roof together. Nalan balanced with impossible grace, moving across the beams with the lightness of a deer. Thomas watched with admiration he tried to hide. "You could teach a mule to dance if you wanted," he joked. She smirked. "Your mule, maybe." Later, when her foot slipped and she nearly fell, he grabbed her wrist with lightning speed. She steadied herself, but he didn't release her immediately. There was a brief, charged pause before she pulled away, pretending not to notice the warmth of his hand. As days bled into weeks, the comfort between them grew undeniable. The valley, once suffocating in its quiet, felt almost alive. Even the mule seemed to approve, though he still gave Nalan skeptical glances. But the season was ending. The council's mandate was temporary. When the harvest was complete, Nalan would return home, where the community would decide if her time away had changed anything. The thought lingered like a shadow. On the final week of their season together, a violent storm ripped through the valley. Lightning struck close enough to shake the earth, and the winds threatened to topple the corn they had worked so hard to nurture. Thomas raced outside to secure fields, and Nalan ran with him. Rain battered them, wind clawed at their clothes, but they fought the storm side by side. When the winds finally died, they stood drenched, exhausted, and shaking from adrenaline. Thomas looked at her, truly looked at her, and understood that something fundamental between them had shifted. "You saved this farm," he said softly. She pressed a strand of wet hair behind her ear. "We saved it." But the next morning, the world snapped back to reality. A messenger approached with the council's decision. Nalan was to return that evening for evaluation and reintegration. The words settled heavily across the farm like thick dust. Thomas walked her to the edge of his land without speaking. Nalan finally stopped and turned toward him. "I thought being sent here was punishment," she said. "I fought it, resented it. But now a broken bar." She swallowed hard. "Now it feels like the punishment is leaving." He stepped closer but kept his hands at his sides. "You don't have to disappear from my life just because the season ends." "And what would I be if I stayed?" she whispered. "A guest? A burden? A reminder of something the council forced on you?" "Someone I respect," he said quietly. "Someone a broken bar care for." The words hung between them, trembling. Nalan's eyes softened, but her voice remained steady. I care for you too. More than I intended. But I can't choose anything today, not until I face my people. Not until I know who I am to them now. Thomas nodded. Then face them. And if you decide to come back a broken bar, his voice tightened. You'll have a place here. She reached out, touched his hand briefly, and then walked away down the dusty road. He watched until she became a small figure in the distance, then a speck, then nothing at all. Weeks passed. The farm was quieter, the nights longer. Thomas worked harder than ever, though the fields seemed emptier without her laughter, her sharp remarks, her steady presence. He told himself that if she chose to stay with her people, it was for the best. But the ache in his chest disagreed. Then one crisp autumn evening, as he was collecting firewood behind the cabin, he saw movement on the road. A silhouette approached, backlit by the setting sun. His heart stumbled in his chest. Nalan walked toward him with the same sure stride she'd had the day she first arrived, but something was different. She carried herself with a calmness he'd never seen before. The council lifted my sentence, she said when she reached him. They said I returned with more wisdom than defiance. He nodded, hardly breathing. And a broken bar, what did you choose? She took a deep breath. I chose the place where I felt most myself, she said. If you'll still have me. Thomas didn't move for a moment. Then he stepped forward, pulling her into an embrace that felt like coming home. The valley exhaled around them, and for the first time in a long while, the future felt wide, open, and full of possibility. And so the Apache woman who had once been sent to a poor farmer as punishment returned not as a sentence, but by choice, ready to build something new alongside the man who had helped her discover the strength in stillness, and the beauty in peace.